Welcome all in the class of physiology. In the previous class, we have discussed about the oral cavity, their structure, the salivary gland, tonsil, saliva composition, and salivary reflexes, their regulation, control, as well as the absorption and digestion in the stomach. So, in this class, we will learn about the structure and function of the pharynx, esophagus and the stomach. So in this class we will learn about the oropharyngeal stage of swallowing, the pharyngo-esophageal sphincter, the peristaltic wave, the anatomy of the stomach, gastric emptying and the mixing, and the very important thing, that is factor regulating gastric motility and emptying. The motility associated with the pharynx and the esophagus is swallowing. That is entire process of moving food from the mouth through the esophagus into the stomach. The swallowing is initiated when a bolus or ball of chewed or liquid food is voluntarily forced by the tongue to the rear of the mouth into the pharynx. So the presence of the pressure of the bolus that stimulate the pharyngeal pressure receptor that is present in the swallowing center located in the medulla of the brain stem. The swallowing center then reflexly activate in the appropriate sequence the muscle involved in the swallowing. So swallowing is the most complex reflex in the body. Multiple highly coordinated responses are triggered in a specific all or non-pattern over a period of the time to accomplish the act of swallowing. So swallowing is initiated voluntarily, but once begun, it cannot be stopped. Now we will learn about the oropharyngeal stage of swallowing. So before proceeding, we should recall that there are several structure is present in the upper digestive tract, that is nasal cavity, oral cavity. In between the nasal cavity and the oral cavity, soft palate is present and as well as the hard palate is present. Uvula is hanging down from the soft palate and there is pharynx. The pharynx is the nasopharynx that receive air from the nasal cavity and oropharynx that receive food from the buccal cavity, and the hypopharynx that attached with the two tubes. One is the windpipe and another is the food pipe. That windpipe is also called trachea and the food pipe is also called the esophagus. So at the primary portion of the trachea and upper to the trachea, there is a structure called epiglottis at the above of the glottis, and the glottis is present at the entrance of the larynx that have several functions during the voice organization as well as during the food swallowing. So now swallowing is divided into the oropharyngeal stage and the esophageal stage. So the oropharyngeal stage lasts about 1 second and consists of the moving of bolus from the mouth through the pharynx and into the esophagus. So when a bolus enter into the pharynx, it must be kept from the re-entering into the mouth, from the entering the nasal passage as well as from the entering to the trachea. So swallowing is managed by the complex coordinated activities, and the food is prevented from the entering the trachea primarily by the elevation of the larynx, which is located here, and tight closure of the vocal folds across the laryngeal opening or the glottis. So the first part of the trachea is the larynx or voice box, across which the vocal fold are stretched. So during the swallowing process, the vocal fold serve a purpose unrelated to the speech formation. So the contraction of the laryngeal muscle align the vocal fold in tight opposition to each other, thus sealing the glottis entrance. Actually, oropharyngeal stage of swallowing involve 5 complex process. That is, first one is the swallowing center inhibit respiratory center in the brain stem during the swallowing process. Second one is the elevation of the uvula prevent food from the entering into the nasal passage. Third one is the position of the tongue that prevent food from the re-entering the mouth. Fourth one is the epiglottis position. The epiglottis is pressed down over closed glottis as auxiliary mechanism to prevent the food from the entering into the trachea. Fifth one also the tight position of vocal fold across the glottis that prevent food from the entering into the respiratory airway system. Actually, the position of the tongue against the hard palate keeps food from the re-entering the mouth during the swallowing. The bolus tilts a small flap of the cartilaginous tissue, that is the epiglottis, the backward down over the closed glottis as further protection from the food entering into the trachea or respiratory airway. With the larynx and the trachea sealed off, the pharyngeal muscles that contract to force the bolus into the esophagus. Now we will see the structure and function of esophagus. The esophagus is a fairly straight muscular tubes that extend between the pharynx and the stomach. So laying from the most part in the thoracic cavity, it penetrates the diaphragm and joins the stomach in the abdominal cavity a few centimeters below the diaphragm. So the esophagus is guarded at both ends by the sphincter. The presence of sphincter, that is upper esophageal sphincter, is called the pharyngoesophageal sphincter, and the lower esophageal sphincter, that is also called the gastroesophageal sphincter. So the esophagus is exposed to a subatmospheric intrapleural pressure as a result of respiratory activity, a pressure gradient that exists between the atmosphere and the esophagus. So except during a swallowing process, the pharyngoesophageal sphincter, which is present here, that remain closed as a result of neurally induced contraction of the sphincter circular skeletal muscles. So tonic contraction of this upper esophageal sphincter keeps the entrance of the esophagus closed to prevent the large volume of the air from entering into the esophagus and stomach during breathing process. So instead, air is directed only into the respiratory airway, that is into the trachea. During the swallowing process, this sphincter opens and allow the bolus to pass into the esophagus. So once the bolus has entered into the esophagus, the pharyngoesophageal sphincter closes, the respiratory pathway are opened and breathing resumes. So now we will learn about the stomach. The stomach is a J-shaped chamber lying between the esophagus and the small intestine. So it is divided into 3 sections, that is fundus, body and antrum. The fundus is the part of the stomach that lies above the esophageal opening. So the middle or the main part of the stomach is the body. The smooth muscle layer in the fundus and the body are the relatively thin, but the lower part of the stomach, the antrum, has much heavier musculature. This difference in muscle thickness play an important role in gastric motility in these two regions. So the terminal portion of the stomach is the pyloric sphincter, which act as a barrier between the stomach and the upper part of the small intestine, that is also called duodenum. Now we will investigate the function of the stomach. So the stomach is the primary site to store the ingested food until it can be emptied into the small intestine at a rate appropriate for optimal digestion and the absorption. So because the small intestine is the primary site for this digestion and absorption process, it is important that the stomach store the food and meter it into the duodenum at a rate that does not exceed the small intestine capacity. So the stomach secretes hydrochloric acid, HCl, and enzyme that begin protein digestion. So through the stomach mixing movement, the ingested food is pulverized and mixed with the gastric secretion to produce a thick liquid mixture known as chyme. The four aspects of gastric motility are filling, storage, mixing, and emptying. In the next slide, we will investigate the four aspects of gastric motility, that is filling, storage, mixing, and emptying. So actually in the empty condition, the stomach has a volume of about 50 ml, but it can expand to a capacity of about 1 liter during a meal. The stomach can accommodate such a 20-fold change in the volume with little change in the tension its wall and little rise in intragastric pressure. So actually the interior of the stomach has several deep folds. During a meal, these folds get smaller and nearly flatten out. So this reflects relaxation of the stomach as it is receiving food is called receptive relaxation. So it enhances the stomach ability to accommodate the extra volume of food with little rise in the stomach pressure. So receptive relaxation is triggered by the act of eating and is mediated by the vagus nerves. Now we will learn about the gastric storage. Actually, a group of pacemaker cells, that is also called interstitial cell of Kajal, and we have learned a lot about the interstitial cell of Kajal in our previous lecture. This interstitial cell of Kajal or ICC, which is located in the upper fundus region of the stomach, that generate slow wave potentials. This slow wave potential sweeps down the length of the stomach toward the pyloric sphincter. So once this slow wave potential is initiated, it spread over the fundus and the body to the antrum and the pyloric sphincter. So because the muscle layer are thin in the fundus and the body area, the peristaltic contraction in this region are very weak. So when the waves reach to the antrum portion, they become much stronger and more vigorous because the muscles here is much thicker. So the fundus usually does not store the food, but it contains only a pocket of the gas. So food is stored in the body without being mixed. So I am again repeating, in the body food is stored and it is not mixed properly. So food is gradually fed from the body into the antrum area where mixing actually takes place. So now we will learn about the gastric mixing process. Actually, the strong antral peristaltic contraction that mix the food into the gastric secretion to produce the chyme. So each antral peristaltic wave propel the food or chyme forward toward the pyloric sphincter. So the tonic contraction of the pyloric sphincter normally keeps it almost but not completely closed. So the opening is large enough for the water and other fluid to pass through with edge, but too small for the thicker chyme to pass through it, except when a strong antral peristaltic contraction push it through. So when even then, of the 30 ml of the chyme that the antrum can hold, it usually only a few milliliter of antral content are pushed into the duodenum with each peristaltic wave. So before more chyme can be squeezed out, the peristaltic wave reach the pyloric sphincter and cause it to contract more forcefully, sealing off the exit and blocking further passage into the duodenum. Actually, gastric emptying process as well as the mixing process is a result of antral peristaltic contractions. So we will learn the steps involved in the gastric mixing as well as in the gastric emptying process. So first we see the gastric emptying process. Actually, as we know that the fundus has the interstitial cell of Kagel that initiate a slow wave potentials. So this peristaltic contraction is originates in the upper fundus area and that sweep down toward the pyloric sphincter. So the contraction become more vigorous as it reaches to the thick muscular antrum portion. So the strong antral peristaltic contraction propel the chyme forward in direction through the pyloric sphincter. So a small portion of chyme is pushed through the partially opened sphincter into the duodenum. The stronger the antral contraction, the more chyme is empty with the each contractile waves. So when the peristaltic contraction reaches the pyloric sphincter, it tightly closes and no further emptying takes place. So when the chyme that was being propelled forward that hits the closed sphincter, so it is the tossed back into the antrum portion. So mixing of the chyme is accomplished as the chyme is propelled forward and tossed back into the antrum with each peristaltic contraction. Now we will learn about the factors that regulate gastric motility and emptying process. So the antral peristaltic contraction are the driving force for the gastric emptying process, and the gastric emptying is regulated by both gastric and duodenal factors. So the greater the excitability, the more frequently the basic electrical rhythm that will generate action potential, the greater the degree of peristaltic activity in the antrum takes place, that result the faster the rate of gastric emptying. So the stomach distension trigger increased gastric motility through a direct effect of stress on the stomach muscles as well as through the involvement of the intrinsic plexus, the vagal nerves and the stomach hormone gastrin. So the degree of fluidity of the chyme in the stomach influence the gastric emptying. Now we will learn about more about the factors that regulate gastric motility and empty process. Actually, the duodenum must be ready to receive the chyme and can delay the gastric emptying by reducing the peristaltic activity in the stomach until the duodenum is ready to accommodate more chyme. So even if the stomach is distended and its content are in a liquid form, it cannot empty until the duodenum is ready to deal with the chyme. So there are four important duodenal factors that influence gastric emptying are the fat, acid, hypertonicity or the distension. So the presence of one or more of these stimulus in the duodenum activate appropriate duodenal receptors that trigger either a neural response or the hormonal response that put brake on the gastric motility by reducing the excitability of the gastric smooth muscle. So the neural response is mediated both the intrinsic nerve plexus, that is short reflex, and the autonomic nerve, that is long reflex, these both reflex is collectively called the introgastric reflexes. Actually, the hormonal response involve the release from the small intestine mucosa of several hormones collectively known as introgasterone. So the blood carries this hormone to the stomach where they inhibit antral contraction to reduce the gastric emptying. So there are two most important introgasterone are secretin and cholecystokine. So the secretin is produced by the endocrine cell that is known as S cell, and cholecystokine by the endocrine cell known as I cell in the duodenal and jejunum mucosa. The secretin was the first hormone which is discovered. The name cholecystokine derived from the fact that the same hormone also causes contraction of the bile containing gallbladder. Chole means bile and cysto means bladder, and kinin means the contraction. So the presence of the fat acid hypertonicity or distension in the duodenum that can stimulate the hormonal response that is collectively called introgasterones. It belongs to the secretin and cholecystokine. It can inhibit the antral contraction to reduce the gastric emptying process. So actually fat is the most potent stimulus for the inhibition of gastric motility. So it is digested and absorbed, takes place only within the lumen of the small intestine more slowly than the other nutrients. So therefore, when fat is already into the duodenum, further gastric emptying of more fatty stomach content into the duodenum is prevented until the small intestine has processed the fat already is present in it. So the another factor that can regulate the gastric motility and emptying is the acid. The stomach secretes hydrochloric acid. That highly acidic chyme is empty into the duodenum. So where it is neutralized by the sodium bicarbonate that is secreted into the duodenal lumen primarily from the pancreas. So this unneutralized acid irritate the duodenal mucosa and inactivate the pancreatic digestive enzyme that are secreted into the duodenal lumen. So therefore, unneutralized acid in the duodenum inhibit further emptying of the acidic gastric content until complete neutralization can be accomplished in the duodenum. Now we will see that how hypertonicity and distension in the duodenum can regulate the gastric motility and emptying. Actually, in duodenal lumen, protein and starch are digested. A large number of amino acid and glucose molecules generated during this digestion process. So if the absorption of these molecules does not take place with the rate of their digestion, the osmolarity of the duodenal content increases that create hypertonicity environment. So more water molecule diffuse across the duodenal wall. A large volume of the water entering to the intestine from the plasma that lead to the intestinal distension. And due to the hypertonicity and distension, the circulatory disturbance occurs due to the reduction in the plasma volume. So to prevent this effect, gastric emptying is reflexively inhibited when the osmolarity of the duodenal content start to rise. So we have learned about the oropharyngeal stage of swallowing. We have investigated the role of pharyngoesophageal sphincter, as well as we learn about the how a peristaltic wave is initiated. We have also learned about the anatomy of stomach, their parts, and the role of their parts in the digestion process. We have also learned about the gastric emptying and mixing process. and the factor which regulate the gastric motility and emptying. So now I am giving you some question for the practice which you will do at your home. So you just search the internet and some reference books that I have suggested. So you have to discuss the role of pharyngoesophageal sphincter. You have to explain the oropharyngeal stage of the swallowing process. You have to elaborate the gastric emptying and mixing process, and you just outline the factors that regulate the gastric motility and emptying process. So this is all about for the today lecture. Now I am closing this session and I am recommending some book for your reference and for the better understanding of human physiology as well as medical physiology. So thank you for the listening, and I am inviting you to join to the next lecture that is based on the stomach.